My name's Cal. I was 19 the day my mother told me she wished I'd died instead of my brother. He was the gift, she said, just loud enough for me to hear over the sound of the guests laughing in the other room. You're the leftover. She didn't cry when she said it, just kept staring at the tablecloth like it owed her something. Matthew's funeral had ended 26 minutes earlier. We were back at the house. Plastic trays of casserole, unwrapped rolls, white wine for the good ones, and water for the rest of us. People grieved in bursts, tears, jokes, stories, polite hugs, then silence. I was wearing his suit. It was too short in the sleeves. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I'd written the eulogy myself. No help. No edits. Matthew was the kind of person who made you feel like the world had one more good day left in it. That's what I said up there, voice shaking like a rusted door. The guests clapped after. I don't know why. Maybe because that's what you do at funerals when words run out. When I sat down next to my mother, she didn't look at me, just reached for her wine and said, "You shouldn't have spoken." I don't remember standing. I just remember the pressure behind my eyes, the metallic taste in the back of my throat. My Uncle Carl patted me on the back as I passed him in the hallway. "You held it together up there." He'd be proud. He didn't see my hands. They were shaking like I was trying to hold my name together. When Matthew was alive, my mother used to introduce us like a resume and a warning. "This is Matthew, captain of the swim team. Honor roll, full ride to Michigan next year. Oh, and that's Cal. He likes computers, I think." I'd stopped correcting her after sophomore year. He was the one they framed, literally, on the wall. Trophies, ribbons, his face mid-laugh in a varsity jacket. I was the blurry background of every Christmas photo. The moment it all cracked was 2 hours after the funeral. I came downstairs to find her alone in the kitchen, unwrapping a second bottle of wine like it was a prayer. "Do you want me to put the leftovers in the fridge?" I asked. She didn't answer. Then she turned around and said, "God took the wrong one." Quiet, like a fact, like the weather. I stood there for a long time, long enough to hear the heater click on, long enough to notice someone had scratched Matthew into the baseboard by the pantry. It wasn't me, probably him. He always wanted to be remembered, even by drywall. "I'll grab my stuff," I said. She didn't stop me. There wasn't much to pack. A hoodie, a charger, a pair of shoes with a hole in the side. She'd given Matthew the new ones last Christmas. She said, I didn't need more than I already had. I walked out the front door with a backpack and $42 in cash. It was raining just enough to matter. My car had a cracked windshield and one working headlight. No destination, just a need to be somewhere else. I found a truck stop just off I-74, the kind with flickering lights and vending machines that didn't take cards. I sat in a plastic booth and ordered black coffee from a server named Dana who looked like she'd been up since 1983. She didn't ask questions. Just poured the coffee, set the mug down with a napkin that had a flower drawn on it in blue pen. I drank it slow, burned my tongue, didn't care. The radio played an old Johnny Cash song no one else seemed to hear. When I couldn't afford to sit anymore, I went to the bathroom, locked the handicap stall, and sat against the wall with my knees up. I used my backpack as a pillow. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't text anyone. Just stared at the vent in the ceiling, the way the air pulsed like it was trying to say something, but couldn't get it out. That's the part I remember most. The silence that wasn't silent. The feeling that I'd finally become what she always saw when she looked at me. Nothing. The next morning, I used my last $5 to buy a bus ticket 2 towns over. I never went back. Not to the house, not to the grave. I didn't even grab my coat. The first place I stayed after the truck stop was a 24-hour laundromat 3 miles away. They had Wi-Fi, vending machines, and a bathroom that didn't lock right. I slept between the dryers and a cracked window with rain on the sill. Nobody asked questions in places like that. The hum of machines covered everything. I got my first job 2 days later, night shift at a diner that smelled like burnt onions and old apologies. They paid cash if you didn't ask for details. I didn't. I didn't talk much. Didn't smile unless someone tipped. The manager said, "You're quiet." That's good. I wiped tables, mopped floors, stood behind the counter like wallpaper with hands. On break, I read whatever I could afford from the used bookstore down the street. Mostly manuals, finance, systems engineering, web infrastructure. The kind of books nobody else wanted. The ones Matthew would have laughed at. By the 3rd month, I was living above a boxing gym for $200 a month. No kitchen, 1 window, a mattress on the floor. I kept the lights off even when they worked. It took me a year to open my first investment account. I used a public library computer and an email address with no real name. The stocks didn't matter at first. What mattered was learning the patterns, human patterns, where people spent, when they panicked, what they forgot to protect. I never used my real name again. not for anything that mattered. By 22, I was managing digital wallets for people who didn't know my face. By 24, I was redirecting traffic through servers I built from used parts. By 25, I started a shell company that bought neglected commercial properties. I called it LMNT Holdings. 4 letters, no story. The first building I purchased was a strip mall 2 blocks from my childhood home. One of the units was a failing vape shop. I didn't raise the rent. I just added a clause to the lease. No signage facing residential streets. That shop used to be where Matthew bought me a birthday gift once. A pack of gum. He forgot the wrapper. People used to say revenge was loud, that it had fire and fury. They were wrong. Revenge was quiet, slow, structural. It was built in paperwork and silence. At 26, I bought the truck stop, the same one I'd slept in the night after my mother said I should have died. The register still squeaked. The bathroom still smelled like floor cleaner and regrets. I didn't change it, didn't rebrand. I kept everything exactly as it was. Only now, every employee had a benefits package. I never told anyone my story, not the full one. The closest I got was a cashier named Renee, who once said, "You don't seem angry enough to be rich." I didn't answer, just handed her a bonus check and said, "Close early if you want." I bought into 3 funeral homes next. Old ones, failing ones, places that hadn't been updated since the 80s. I didn't care about margins. I cared about access. People talked at funerals. People forgot who was listening, especially when the person listening didn't speak. I heard stories about families that broke their own, about mothers who called grief by the wrong name, about sons who became shadows and never came home. Sometimes I'd sit in the back of a service not knowing the name of the deceased, just watching, learning how people left and how people stayed. One time I overheard a pastor say, "Grief doesn't leave you. It becomes a room you live in." I thought about my mother, and how she always blamed the storm for breaking the windows, but never asked who left them open. At 29, I had 4 active business entities, 27 employees, and 6 addresses in cities I didn't live in. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't waiting anymore. The last time I visited Matthew's grave was in November. I went after midnight. No flowers, no note, just a bottle of water and a folding chair. His headstone read, Matthew James, 1994 to 2013, the best of us. I sat there for 47 minutes, didn't speak. At one point, a raccoon passed by. Didn't stop, just kept moving. Back in the car, I pulled up a news video on my phone. It was an old interview. His swim coach talking about a scholarship fund named after him. "He taught me how to live," the coach said, eyes glassy. "He was everything we hope young men can be." I closed the app before the ad played, put the car in drive, didn't turn the heat on. That winter, I bought a new house. Not because I needed one, but because it had a view of the school where Matthew used to walk past the window and wink at girls in the hallway. The realtor asked if I had kids. I said, "No, just ghosts." She didn't ask again. I hadn't heard her voice in over 10 years. It came through my phone like a memory I didn't ask for. Flat, weak, stripped of the venom it used to carry. "Cal, it's your mother." I was sitting in the back booth of a coffee shop I owned but never named. The barista knew not to ask questions. They never did. I kept the lights dim and the Wi-Fi fast. That's all anyone wanted these days. Warmth was optional. I didn't say anything when I answered. Just listened. She hesitated, then spoke like someone trying to remember how to beg without sounding like I wouldn't be calling if I had any other option. She didn't ask how I was, didn't say she missed me, or that she was sorry, or that she'd remembered my birthday even once in the last decade. Just this. They got into my accounts. My pension's gone. Everything. I took a sip of black coffee and looked out the window. Rain again. Fitting. "I just need $2,000, just to keep the lights on until I can—" She didn't finish the sentence, because we both knew there was no next step. There never had been. I asked her to confirm her account details. Calm, flat. She gave them without question. Still in her name. Still under the same bank she'd opened when I was 12. The one she didn't let me use, because Matthew needs the space more. I opened my laptop, typed in a few lines of code, clicked transfer, $2,000 confirmed. She exhaled like someone waking from surgery. I could hear her start to cry. "Thank you, Cal. I didn't know who else." That's when I muted the call. Not hung up, just muted. Let her talk into silence, while I opened a second terminal, accessed the back end of a voice-authenticated reversal protocol I'd built myself, originally for financial fraud detection. It required one phrase to execute. Request reversal. Matthew James. I whispered it into the mic. His name, my wound. The transaction reversed in less than 9 seconds. The $2,000 vanished from her balance, clean, silent, final. I unmuted. She was still thanking me. "You've always been the responsible one. Maybe I didn't say it before, but I I closed the laptop, didn't say a word, just let the silence finish the conversation. Then I hung up. I sat in that booth for another hour, watched the rain form small rivers in the parking lot. A man across from me was laughing at something on his phone, probably a cat video, or a girl falling on ice. Funny what people find entertaining. When I got back to my car, I checked my email. Sure enough, one new notification from the reversal system. Transaction rolled back, origin verified. Memo: leftovers don't forget. I drove back to the house. Didn't turn on music, didn't call anyone, didn't feel proud, just steady. That night I opened a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving for an occasion that never came. Drank half a glass. Let the burn remind me that I was still in this body. Then I logged into a backup folder on an encrypted server and opened an old voicemail I'd saved from my mother. Timestamp: 9:41 p.m., March 6th, 2013. Her voice, younger, sharper. You'll never be what he was. You don't have that light. Stop trying to make me proud. You were born wrong. I played it twice, then archived it under a new label, verified. The next morning, I sent a donation to a mental health nonprofit that helped kids estranged from toxic families. I used her name on the donation. Public, tagged on social. She'd be notified in 2 days. The first crack was the email. It went out to the mailing list at St. Augustine's, her church, her sanctuary, the one place she still played, grieving mother of a saint. Subject line: why Cal left, a personal testimony. No greeting, no explanation, just one paragraph. He was the gift. You're the leftover. She said that to me the day we buried my brother. I wore his suit because I didn't own one of my own. She didn't cry at the funeral. She cried when she realized I'd spoken. She told me the wrong son had died. So I left, and she never looked for me, not once. Sent from a public IP. No reply address. Attached to a donation receipt bearing her name. The second crack came through the pastor. He called her in for a private meeting, asked her if the message was true. She denied it. Said it was a mistake, or maybe a hacker. He didn't challenge her, just said, "Your giving record stopped the year your other son died." I always wondered why. She didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. How does it feel to bury the wrong child twice? She blocked it, didn't tell anyone. But when her niece called that evening, she ignored the ring like it was a siren. The next crack was more public. She showed up at my office building. I knew she would. Eventually. That's why I told the receptionist what to expect. Middle-aged woman, faded brown coat, says she's my mother. Don't call security. Just hand her the envelope. She arrived just before noon. Tried to walk past the desk like she belonged. The receptionist intercepted her gently. "I have something for you." She blinked, opened the envelope. Inside, a single typed message centered on white paper. "You called me leftover. I never came back to the table." No signature, no logo. But she knew. Because her face drained of color the way old photographs fade in the sun. She left the building without saying another word. Didn't try to call. Didn't text. Didn't beg. Not yet. But she started unraveling after that. A week later, her neighbor stopped by and asked if she was okay. Said they'd seen her talking to herself in the yard at 2 a.m. She said she was praying, but there were no candles, just a stack of mail on the grass, all addressed to someone else. The next Sunday, she wasn't at church. She sent an email to her pastor instead. "Please remove me from all public lists. I need time to process." She began contacting old friends after that, people she hadn't spoken to in years, her college roommate, Matthew's old swim coach, the librarian who used to ask about our family. They all told her the same thing. I'm not sure what to say, because they'd seen the email. And even if they hadn't believed it, they believed I'd never spoken before, which made it real enough. She left 5 voicemails for me that week, each one quieter than the last. The final one was barely a whisper. "I don't know what to say, Cal. I never did, but I miss you. I miss what we could have had. I'm sorry." I didn't save it. Didn't even finish listening. Just press delete, then mute. A few days later, I heard she showed up to St. Augustine's uninvited. No makeup, no heels, just her grief. She tried to give a speech during the memorial for another family's son. Security asked her to leave. That same night, I made a new donation, anonymous, to a local shelter for abandoned teens. In the "in honor of" section, I typed, "For the ones who were told to be silent." The final crack came in the mail, not to her, but to her bank. A request to close an account signed in her handwriting, except it wasn't hers. It was a perfect copy, a Hummus Vani, the kind of forgery someone could create after watching her hand move over bills for 15 years. The bank flagged it. Her assets froze, just long enough for her to notice what fear feels like. She called me, blocked number, left one line, "Please stop. I'm tired." I didn't respond, not with words, just with silence. The same silence she left me with at Matthew's funeral. The same silence that filled our house for years. The same silence she taught me to live in. The first package arrived on a Tuesday. Manila envelope. No return address. Inside, a printed photo from Matthew's funeral. Not of him, of her. Standing at the altar, holding a tissue with dry eyes. On the back, written in block type, "I lost my only child. You." She called the post office to ask who had sent it. They said the delivery came from an independent courier, paid in cash. The next week, a flash drive. It arrived tucked into a padded envelope, hand-labeled, audio log, 3.613. She played it on her old laptop. Her voice, clear as morning frost. "You'll never be what he was. You were born wrong." She paused the recording halfway through, pushed the laptop off the table. It didn't break, just blinked once, then started playing again automatically. A day later, she found her voicemail box full. 12 unheard messages. All her own voice. Clips from the past, edited into brutal clarity. "Don't call me from that school again unless someone's dead. Matthew needs that space. You just need to stop sulking. You don't cry well, you just look pathetic." She unplugged the landline, threw it in the trash. Still, her cell buzzed that night. A text, "I don't forget like you do." By the third week, her sleep started breaking down. She dreamt of Matthew. But in the dreams, his eyes looked like mine. And he said nothing, just stared, like I used to. She turned off her Wi-Fi, closed her email, started walking to the library to avoid devices. But the next book she checked out had a note inside. "Leftovers remember," handwritten, in her own handwriting. She reported it to the library desk. The clerk blinked and said, "That book hasn't been checked out in 6 years. Last name was Matthew." She left it on the floor, didn't come back. The mail kept arriving. 1 week. Her application to a senior housing complex returned, marked "Denied Ownership Conflict." She called to ask what it meant. The receptionist looked up the file. "It says the property owner listed your name as ineligible due to past abuse." "Who owns it?" she asked. The clerk paused, then said, "A holding company, LMNT Holdings." She didn't eat that night. She stared at the wall for 5 hours. When she turned on her phone the next morning, the lock screen had changed. It wasn't her background anymore. It was Matthew's autopsy report, stamped with one line, "Time of death, 11:17 p.m." The exact minute I had left the house that night. She took the phone to a repair shop. They told her no one had hacked it, just synced it to a cloud account, registered in 2013, under the name C. Matthews. That night, her house went dark. Power shut off at 11:17 p.m. She called the utility company in a panic, waited on hold for 42 minutes. When someone finally answered, she gave her name and address. The rep said, "This account was closed yesterday." "Who closed it?" "Your emergency contact." "My what?" "Your emergency contact." She was silent for a moment. Then, "Which son?" A pause on the line, then a click. The rep had hung up. She tried to turn the power back on manually. The fuse box had a single sticky note taped to the inside panel. "Silence doesn't forget. Silence waits." The next morning, she packed a bag and walked to the church. The door was locked. A sign on the glass read, "Closed for maintenance." There was no maintenance crew. There never would be. Back home, her phone buzzed again. One final text. "Not because I want to hurt you, just because you taught me this was how to love." She sat in the dark. The kind of dark you can't turn off with a switch. The public didn't know me. Not really. They knew the name LMNT Holdings, knew the success stories, knew the donation plaques, the quiet empire of rehabs and shelters and scholarship funds, but not me. I stayed off stage. No press, no panels. I preferred to be the one holding the door open, then disappearing before it shut. But that day I was expected. An endowment gala for youth mental health, an award with my name on it. I didn't ask for it, but I didn't reject it either. They said it would help the cause. I wore a black suit, not Matthew's, mine. A soft gray tie, simple, unremarkable. The lobby was marble and gold. People smiled like they practiced it in mirrors. I didn't smile back. Backstage, a coordinator approached. "Mr. Matthews," she whispered, handing me a card. "Just your name and title for the MC, unless you want to add a note." I didn't write anything. What I wanted to say couldn't be said in print. The ballroom filled, hundreds of seats, long tables with place cards and floral centerpieces, and linen napkins folded like swans. I scanned the crowd once, slowly, stopped when I saw her. She looked smaller, shoulders curled inward like a question mark, hair stiff, jacket fraying at the edges, eyes like cracked glass, still trying to reflect something. She sat near the back, alone. Number 1 noticed her. Number 1 offered her a chair with a view. The MC called my name, Polite applause. I walked up, slow and steady, hands calm at my sides, took the stage. No speech, just silence held like breath in a sealed room. Then I turned toward the crowd. Didn't look at the cameras, didn't look at the donors. I looked at her, straight through every year, every word, every time she looked past me like I didn't matter. And then I said it. I was never the leftover. You just didn't know how to love more than one son. That was all. No thank yous, no tears, no applause. I stepped down before they realized it was over. As I passed her table, she stood halfway like she wanted to stop me. Her mouth opened, but she had no words left, just like me, that night on the church floor. Just like I had none, when she called me a mistake at my brother's grave. Just like all those nights I waited for her to knock on the stall door of a truck stop restroom and say, "Come home." She never did, so I never did. I left the building before dessert. The air outside was cold, but it didn't cut. I liked that. At midnight, I made one final transaction. A single cent, sent from an anonymous checking account to hers. Memo. Change is all you ever gave me. She would wake up to it, check her balance, see the number shift by 0.01. She would know, and she would understand, because she taught me to speak without sound, to love without warmth, to forgive without permission. The past didn't echo anymore. It just stood still. I walked to my car, put the keys in, let the heater warm slowly. Then I drove away. No destination, just forward. My mother told me she wished I had died instead of my brother, and the leftover became the architect of silence. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.